It was a quiet Tuesday evening when Savannah came home, but something about her energy didn't match the stillness in the air. The kind of quiet that should have felt comforting instead carried a weight I couldn't place. I was sitting on the couch, half watching some documentary I wasn't really absorbing, and the sound of her keys jangling in the doorframe immediately put me on alert. She walked in fast, heels clicking hard against the tile, lips pressed tight. Her coat was folded over her arm, but her hair, makeup, and the sleek black dress she wore didn't scream business meeting. They whispered something else. "Hey," she said, setting her purse on the counter, not looking at me right away. I muted the TV. "Late one." She paused. "Yeah. Meeting ran long. You know how Edward gets when he's had 2 whiskeys and a whiteboard." I gave a slow nod. "Must have been important." She finally glanced at me, then backed down. "It was. That's it." That's all she gave me. And maybe that would have been enough. Maybe I would have just nodded and let the moment pass if it hadn't been for what I'd found earlier that day. I'd taken her car for a wash, nothing out of the ordinary. It was something I usually did every couple of weeks, one of those little favors that makes a relationship feel like a partnership. Vacuumed the floors, wiped down the dash, popped the glove compartment. That's when I saw it, a thick brochure wedged between the seat and the center console like it had slipped and been forgotten. A full-color pamphlet from Taipei Coastal Resort. It didn't take a genius to figure out what kind of place it was. The cover alone was enough, a couple holding hands in front of an oceanfront view, champagne flutes in hand, bathrobes barely hiding smiles. I flipped through it right there in the parking lot, each page worse than the last. Spa treatments, couples massages, candlelit dinners by the water. Honeymoon stuff. Anniversary stuff. Definitely not quarterly budget review material. At first, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she brought it home because Edward was planning some retreat. Maybe HR passed them out to management as part of a partnership. Maybe. I mean, there had to be some logical reason, right? But hours later, while scrolling through Instagram out of sheer boredom, the doubt hardened into something colder. Edward had posted a story from Taipei. One of those blurry videos people take when they think a skyline is going to impress someone. The pool, the stone patio, the bar with the hanging glass lights, it all matched the brochure. But that wasn't the part that stopped me. It was the mirror. A decorative, round mirror hung in the hallway behind him, and in its reflection, for just a second, was Savannah. Her profile, crystal clear. Same updo she'd worn the night before. Same earrings. Smiling. She wasn't even trying to hide it. It wasn't blurry or cropped. She was just there. Like she belonged. So when she walked through that door claiming a meeting, something in me tightened. I waited until she'd taken off her coat and gone into the kitchen before I said anything. "Savannah," I called out, picking up the brochure from the coffee table. I'd placed it there earlier like some kind of trap. "This fall out of your car." She turned. Froze. Not full body frozen, just a flicker of something in her shoulders. "Where'd you find that?" she asked, tone a little too casual. "In your car. Wedged by the console." She walked over and took it from my hand slowly. Glanced at it. "Huh. Must have been from work. Taipei? Fancy place for a company event." She shrugged. "Probably old. From the last time we did a retreat." "I don't know. You're always digging through my things lately." That last part stung. It wasn't a response, it was an accusation. "I wasn't digging. I was cleaning your car like I always do." "Right," she said flatly. "Cleaning. You were there, weren't you?" I asked more quietly. "With Edward." She laughed, not out of amusement, but like I'd said something too ridiculous to entertain. "Are you serious right now?" "I saw you," I said. "He posted a video. You were in the background. In the mirror." There was a long silence. I watched her face for any hint of honesty, any crack in the wall, but all I got was this cold, unreadable expression. Instead of answering, she sat on the armrest and crossed her legs, flipping the brochure closed. "You've really been keeping tabs, haven't you?" she said. "I'm not keeping tabs. You're lying." She rolled her eyes, then shifted tactics. "You know what your problem is, Alex? You get so worked up over these little things. A mirror in the background? A brochure? It's like you're always waiting for me to mess up. You're deflecting. And you're controlling." That one hit different. Harder. "Controlling?" I repeated, stunned. "You disappear overnight. Come home dressed like it's date night. Lie about where you were. And I'm controlling?" Her voice was suddenly sharper. "Do you have any idea what it's like being married to someone who second-guesses everything I say? Who acts like I'm under surveillance? It's exhausting, Alex." I was floored. Not because I hadn't heard these words before. Pieces of them had come up in little arguments over the last few months. but because she dropped them now in this moment as if they somehow justified everything else. I'm not the one who went to a luxury hotel and pretended it was a meeting. You're not the one who spent the last year emotionally absent. **T back. You think this is about one trip? It's about every night I've gone to bed feeling like a ghost. And just like that, the conversation stopped being about Tide Bay. It became about me, my shortcomings, my distance, my lack of interest. She dug up every grievance she'd cataloged over the past year. Times I missed date nights. Times I came home tired from work and didn't ask about her day. Times I said, I'm fine when I wasn't. She built a case with practiced precision. It wasn't messy. It was surgical. And through it all, not once, not even for a second, did she explain why the booking was under her name, why Edward was there, why her phone had been face down for weeks, or why she suddenly wore perfume she'd never owned before. By the end of it, I wasn't angry. I was numb. I sat on that couch, the TV still muted, as she marched upstairs, leaving the Tide Bay brochure behind like a piece of evidence discarded at a crime scene. I stared at it for a long time. The couple on the cover looked happy, effortlessly close, like they'd never known the kind of silence that sits between two people who no longer recognize each other. That was the moment something shifted in me. Not because she lied, because she didn't even try to lie well. The night after the brochure incident, I stayed awake longer than usual. Savannah had gone to bed hours earlier, probably assuming the argument had ended the way so many of ours did lately. Unfinished, swept under the rug, absorbed by fatigue. But I couldn't sleep. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, hearing every small sound the house made. It wasn't just the lack of answers that kept me up. It was the realization that I had stopped asking the right questions months ago. The next morning, I got up before she did and made coffee like nothing had happened. I didn't bring up the trip or the mirror or the brochure. I just watched her, quietly, intently, and when she left for work, something in my gut twisted. It was like watching a stranger leave my house wearing my wife's skin. I started to notice more things. Things I'm sure had been happening for weeks, maybe months, but that I'd brushed off. Her scent had changed. It was subtle at first. A sharper, more expensive perfume that lingered in the air even after she was gone. Not one I'd bought her. Not one I'd ever seen on her dresser before. She used to wear this vanilla amber stuff, warm and light. Now it was something colder, exotic. The kind of perfume you don't pick up on sale, the kind someone recommends to you personally. She started working out more. New leggings, matching sports bras, 2 different brands I'd never seen before. Tags still on some of them. I asked her about them once and she waved me off. Said she got a deal through a friend. Which friend? No name. No follow-up. And then there was her phone. We used to be casual with our phones. Not in some performative, look how trustworthy we are kind of way, it just never felt necessary to guard them. Mine would be face up on the coffee table while I cooked. Hers would ring while she was in the shower, and I'd answer it without a second thought. But lately, it went everywhere with her. Into the shower. Into the closet. She kept it face down, silenced. Once, when it buzzed during dinner, she grabbed it before I could glance over. Like a reflex. Not guilt exactly, but the fear of being caught in something she couldn't explain away. I told myself I was being paranoid. That work had just made her anxious. That the company was putting pressure on everyone. But the little things added up. Like when she started staying up late, claiming she was watching webinars or catching up on emails. I'd walk past the office and catch a glimpse of her screen. Messaging apps, mostly. Her smile when she replied wasn't the kind you give a coworker. Still, I said nothing. I played my role. I made dinner, folded laundry, took her car in for oil changes. But the silence between us was starting to make more noise than any argument ever could. We used to share music over dinner, laugh about stupid things we saw online. Now every conversation was logistical. Deadlines, errands, dinner plans. No int asterisk Macy, no spark. Just 2 people orbiting the same life without ever really touching. Then came the charity gala. It was one of those formal company events that people pretend to hate but secretly get excited about. Savannah had been talking about it for weeks. Edward was chairing the whole thing, and apparently it was a big deal. She picked out a dress online, some shimmery champagne-colored thing that cost more than I made in a week. It arrived early, and she tried it on in front of the bedroom mirror. I remember watching her from the doorway. She looked beautiful, objectively speaking, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the version of her standing there wasn't mine anymore. "You like it?" she asked, smoothing the fabric along her sides. I nodded. "Yeah, you look great." She gave me a quick smile. "Not the real kind. The kind you offer someone out of politeness." At the event, the final blow came. We were standing near the bar, awkwardly mingling with her coworkers, most of whom I barely knew. Savannah looked radiant, glowing under the overhead lights. She always carried herself well in public, poised, professional, charming. But when she introduced me to Edward's wife, I noticed something strange. "This is Alex," she said with a small laugh. "An old family friend." I turned to her, stunned. "Family friend." I said it lightly, like a joke, but my voice shook a little. She avoided my eyes, just sipped her drink and started talking to someone else. I stood there, frozen, while they moved on without me. I watched her laugh, tilt her head, touch Edward's arm for a little too long. I kept telling myself I was imagining it, that this was just the kind of high-stakes schmoozing people did at these things. But I couldn't ignore the way she looked at him when she thought I wasn't watching. That night, we didn't talk about the event on the drive home. She fell asleep quickly, still in her makeup, still in her dress. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, listening to her breathe. My hands trembled. I wanted to believe her. I wanted so badly to believe that all of this was stress, bad timing, coincidence. But deep down, I knew there was a story happening behind the scenes, and I wasn't in it. The next morning, I started checking the little things. Not breaking trust, just verifying it. I looked at our shared calendar. She'd marked a networking event for the following Thursday, late in the evening. I Googled the venue. No event listed. I checked her Instagram, then Edward's. He'd posted a boomerang from a fancy bar last Thursday, the same night Savannah got home late, flushed and distant. In the background, the same champagne-colored dress. Her boss, her mentor, the man she once said reminded her of her dad, which felt twisted now that I remembered it. I kept trying to tell myself there could be another explanation, but all I could hear in my head was her calling me a family friend. I thought back to the last time she kissed me with intention. Couldn't remember. I thought back to the last time she asked about my day and actually listened. Nothing. Instead, I remembered the way she used to light up when we talked about getting out of the city. How she once told me she felt safest with me. How she used to lean on my chest during movies, not just sit beside me with her knees pulled in, like she was trying to take up less space. Now she sat far away. Now she kept secrets in the cloud. Now she called me a friend. And I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was unraveling. 2 days later, she said she had another late work dinner. A strategy session. This time, her voice was casual, confident. Too confident. She tossed the phrase out over breakfast like it was just another item on her to-do list. She buttered toast with one hand and scrolled through her phone with the other, not once looking up to see if I believed her. I played along. "Don't wait up," she said, which was fine. I wasn't planning to. That morning, I had already laid out my plan. There was a small beach town about an hour south, Tide Bay. The name stuck with me after I saw it on the brochure and again in Edward's Instagram story. A pretty place, quiet, lined with cliffs and wind-blown pines. Savannah had mentioned it once, weeks ago, in passing. Said she was thinking of booking a day trip with some colleagues from her department. That word, colleagues, now sounded more like camouflage than context. So when she left that evening, dressed a little too nice for a so-called strategy meeting, I waited 5 minutes, then grabbed my keys and left through the back door. I didn't have a real plan beyond seeing it for myself. I just needed the truth. Not the suspicion. Not the half-explanations. The truth. If I didn't get it, I knew what would happen. I'd rot in that in-between place where denial pretends to be optimism. Where love begs for things it no longer recognizes. The drive to Tide Bay felt longer than it should have. It was just past dusk and the highway was empty, washed in orange and blue. I had one hand on the wheel, the other tapping rhythmically against my thigh, nerves pulsing in waves. I didn't know what I expected to find. Maybe nothing. Maybe I'd get there, feel foolish, and go home angry with myself for chasing ghosts. But I got there. And I found more than I wanted. She had told me she was going to a downtown conference center, so the fact that her GPS location, yes, I tracked her, was pinging at a coastal address was all I needed. It was a small bay house. Not a hotel, not a restaurant. A private rental tucked between dunes and rocks, the kind you find listed under romantic escapes on travel sites. It even had a little porch swing and solar lights strung across the back deck. Edward's SUV was parked in front. I didn't get out of the car at first. I just sat there, 2 blocks up, engine off, watching the wind nudge the trees back and forth. My heart was pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. I told myself I didn't need to see any more. That the SUV was enough. That everything that had built up over the last month, the perfume, the hotel brochure, the late nights, the phone secrecy, had already written the ending. But my body didn't listen. I walked. Slowly. Cautiously. The kind of walk you do when you already know what's waiting, but your brain hasn't caught up with your legs. The lights were on inside. I couldn't see much from the side, but when I reached the edge of the deck, I looked through the wide living room window. The glass was fogged slightly from the heater inside. Still, I could make them out. Edward was sitting on the couch, leaned back casually like he was home. Savannah was curled into his side, barefoot, head resting on his shoulder. She was laughing. Not politely. Not nervously. The kind of laugh you only make when you feel safe. Comfortable. In asterisk mate. That was the word I kept repeating in my head, in asterisk mate. She never laughed like that with me anymore. I backed away before I could see more. I didn't need a kiss. I didn't need to hear them. I'd already crossed the threshold of denial and landed in something colder. Something irreversible. I made it back to the car. Sat there for what felt like an hour, just trying to breathe. Everything in me ached. Not just my chest, my hands, my eyes, my jaw. Every cell in my body screamed with the kind of pain that has no outlet. No words. No shape. I didn't cry. I just sat. When I got home, the house felt unfamiliar. Like someone had rearranged it while I was gone. The air felt heavier. Staler. I walked through the hallway like a guest in my own life. And then I remembered her tablet. It was an old iPad we rarely used anymore. She kept it in the kitchen drawer, mostly for reading recipes. But I knew it was synced to her cloud account. I also knew she never bothered to log out. I powered it on. The screen lit up immediately. No passcode. The Photos app was right there, just waiting. There was an album called Tide Bay. I opened it and that was it. No more doubt. No more rationalizing. It was all there, pictures of her and Edward at that same rental. At a spa. At a seafood restaurant, her arm linked with his. Hotel selfies, half-lit and smug. A *T of her in a robe, his hand resting on her knee. Him holding a glass of wine while she smirked behind him in the mirror. One photo had a timestamp from last Thursday, the night she claimed she was working late. Each picture was a wound. A moment stolen. A version of her that didn't belong to me anymore. But the part that gutted me? The way she looked at him. There was no hesitation in her expression. No guilt, no conflict. Just warmth. Playfulness. Affection. The kind of affection she used to give me back when we still believed in each other. I don't know how long I sat with those photos. I must have gone through the album a dozen times. At one point, I zoomed in on a *T of them standing by a fire pit, wine glasses in hand, marshmallows roasting between them. She had her head tilted, smiling up at him. I remembered the tilt. She used to do that when I said something that caught her off guard, not funny but thoughtful. Now it was his. At some point, my hands stopped shaking. It was over. Not just the lie. Not just the marriage. The version of me that waited, that hoped, that trusted blindly, he was gone too. And in his place was someone else. Someone quiet. Focused. Cold maybe, but calm. I backed up the album to a private drive. Exported everything. Timestamps, metadata, even location tags. I screen captured her messages with him. A few were cloud-synced, compliments, suggestive jokes, one where she wrote, "I hate lying to Alex." Another one, days later, read, "He's not suspicious, just tired." I was tired. But not anymore. The morning after I found the Tide Bay album, I woke up without the usual ache in my chest. No racing thoughts. No second-guessing. It was like some emotional organ had shut off overnight. What replaced it wasn't peace, not exactly, it was clarity. A cold kind of clarity that came with the certainty of betrayal. The questions were gone. There was only action now. Savannah was already gone when I came downstairs. She'd left early, probably to avoid conversation. I poured a cup of coffee and stood at the window, watching the street, thinking about how normal everything looked. Cars pulling out, dogs being walked, neighbors heading to work, waving politely. Meanwhile, I was drafting a silent exit plan from a life I thought I'd grow old in. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want yelling or tears or drawn-out ultimatums. I didn't need to tell her I knew. I wanted her to feel it. So I started that day. I called a lawyer, not a local one. I didn't want her catching wind of anything too soon. Instead, I drove an hour out to meet with someone a friend of mine had used during his divorce, a quiet guy with sharp suits and sharper instincts. His office overlooked a dull stretch of office parks, but inside, the man ran his practice like a war room. He took one look at the folder of evidence I laid on the table and said, "We can do this clean, fast, and tight." He explained that filing in a neighboring state, just across the line, would give me better leverage. More favorable division laws, faster processing. It meant a few technical hoops, but I didn't blink. I signed the retainer that same hour. Then came the prep. I began moving money, quietly, strategically. I didn't drain everything, but I carved out a portion of our joint savings, my paychecks, my inheritance, the safe stuff, and shifted it to a new private account in my name only. Something she wouldn't notice unless she was looking hard. I canceled auto transfers to the bills she usually managed. Changed the passwords to every account that bore my name, insurance, mortgage, utilities. Locked her out of the shared cloud storage. Disabled access to the backup drive. Every login. Every recovery question. Changed. Next, the locks. That night, after she'd fallen asleep, I drove to a 24-hour hardware store and picked up a new smart lock system. By morning, the house had a new passcode, and I was the only one who knew it. The lawyer drafted the paperwork. Concise, thorough, brutal. It included everything, the infidelity, the financial movement, the digital evidence. We packaged it together in a sleek, flat envelope. Inside, images, message transcripts, and a formal petition for divorce, filed under my name and served from across state lines. It was delivered the next afternoon. To her office. I timed it carefully. She was presenting at a quarterly review meeting. Her entire department was in the conference room. The receptionist handed her the envelope right as she stepped up to the screen. I wouldn't be there to see it, but I imagined the look on her face. The split second of confusion before it all registered. The dread that follows exposure. The unraveling. While that unfolded, I took my last steps at home. I boxed up her things. Neatly. No anger in the process, just precision. Clothes, jewelry, makeup, shoes. I left out essentials. A week's worth of outfits, toiletries, charger cords. Everything else went into storage. Her laptop, the company-issued one, I placed on the desk with a sticky note that read, "You'll want to return this soon." I left her suitcase on the porch, tucked beneath the awning. Didn't toss it. Didn't scatter her things on the lawn like some bad movie breakup. I wanted this to be clean, undeniable. I wanted her to feel the finality of it all, not chaos, not a plea for attention, just consequence. By the time she got home, everything was locked. I watched from the second floor, lights off, as she pulled into the driveway and got out slowly, keys in hand. She approached the front door, confused by the new keypad. Tried her old code. Once, twice. Then again, more frantically. Her shoulders tensed. She pressed the doorbell. Waited. I didn't answer. She turned around and spotted the suitcase. Her face fell. She picked it up, stood there for a second, and then sat down on the steps, phone in hand. I knew what she was doing. Trying to call. Trying to text. The notifications buzzed on my phone, but I didn't open them. Not yet. After a while, she stopped trying. She just sat there, staring out at the street, her expression unreadable. Not panicked, not yet, but not composed either. She didn't cry. She didn't knock again. She just stayed there, like someone waiting for a train they weren't sure was coming. Eventually, she left. The next few days were quiet. No in-person visits. Just a stream of unread messages piling up in my notifications. She tried every angle. Confusion, guilt, rage, nostalgia. The first few texts were almost funny in how quickly they shifted tones. Alex, what is this? This is insane. Can we just talk? You can't do this. Not without even telling me. Please. I'm sorry, okay? You're being cruel. We can fix this. We always do. No, not this time. She showed up at my office 3 days later. Security turned her away. She left a note with the front desk. It said, I don't understand why you're doing this. I thought we were stronger than this. I made a mistake, but you're blowing up our entire life. No apology. Just blame. I didn't respond. My lawyer updated me daily. She hadn't filed a counterclaim. No formal response yet. He said she was likely consulting her own attorney now, scrambling to understand how fast it all moved. Apparently, Edward had gone quiet. No public statements, no support, no denials. According to someone at her firm, he started distancing himself immediately. She'd been removed from a couple of high-profile projects. Her name was dropped from a presentation. Whispers had started. Her world, the one she thought she built with charm and control, was collapsing. And I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. Just calm. She sent one more message a week later. A voice memo. I didn't play it. Just deleted it from the notification bar before I could hear the first second. I didn't need her reasons. I didn't need her regret. The truth was enough. It's strange how quickly things unravel once you stop holding them together. In the week that followed her dismissal from the house, the cracks in Savannah's world became canyons. What had started as small tremors, locked doors, unread texts, a missed call or two soon became something deeper, something that even she couldn't talk her way around. The first real blow came fast. Edward, her boss, her partner in deception, dropped her. Flat. Not officially, of course. There was no press release or big announcement, just a quiet but decisive retreat. One moment they were seen together at industry events, exchanging glances like co-conspirators. The next, he was nowhere to be found. His name disappeared from her messages, his voice absent from the voicemails she left me trying to explain what really happened. I knew what happened. And so did he. From what I heard through a mutual contact, he called it a serious lapse in judgment. Told the company he had no idea things had gone that far. Claimed it was an isolated incident and that he was focusing on his responsibilities moving forward. Corporate speak for you're on your own now. Savannah was pulled into a meeting 3 days after I served her. She thought she was going in to talk damage control. Instead, they handed her a packet and asked her to sign a mutual separation agreement. It was filled with polite language, transition support, continuation of benefits, non-disclosure, but the message was clear: we can't have you here anymore. The position she'd worked toward for years, the one that gave her status, identity, purpose, gone in a single afternoon. I didn't find out until a week later. A coworker of hers, someone I barely knew, sent me a LinkedIn message. Not sure if you're aware, but Savannah's no longer with us. I hope you're okay. I didn't reply, but I saved the message anyway. A little reminder that consequences, real consequences, were finally catching up. Her next stop was her parents. I imagine she thought they'd rally to her side, comfort her, offer up some well-meaning line about how everyone makes mistakes. But they didn't. Her father, a retired Army officer with a rigid sense of loyalty, was silent. Her mother, from what I was told, offered her a night on the guest bed and a quietly worded lecture about respect and personal accountability. That lasted 2 days. Then came the sister, Rachel. Younger by 5 years, newly married, living in a cramped apartment with a toddler and a mountain of student debt. Savannah showed up with a suitcase and a look of defeat, and Rachel, reluctantly, I'm sure, let her in. That's where she landed. On a fold-out couch in a second-floor walk-up near the freeway, the kind of place where traffic drowns out conversation and the smell of someone else's cooking always lingers in the hallway. No more leather chairs or catered meetings. No more Tide Bay weekends. Just the hum of a broken ceiling fan and a crying baby in the next room. She started reaching out more. First to mutual friends, then to mine. She asked one couple, the Millers, if they'd meet her for coffee. They declined. Said it would be too awkward. Another friend, Jason, texted me to say she called him in tears. Told him she just needed someone to talk to. He said he told her gently that he didn't feel right getting involved. That it felt like taking sides. And that was that. Even the people she thought would never leave started going quiet. She posted a cryptic story on her social media one night. A photo of her old journal, a cup of tea beside it, captioned with something like, "You never realize what matters until it's gone." I didn't engage, but I saw it. The next day, she deleted her account. Her messages to me became less frequent but more emotional. The earlier ones had been logical, pleading. She wanted to talk, explain, reframe. But those dried up once she realized I wasn't playing along. Then came the desperation. "I'm so sorry, Alex. I messed up. I know I did. I didn't think it would end like this. I thought I could fix it before it got out of hand. But it's all broken now. I don't know what to do. Please just let me talk to you. One conversation. That's all I'm asking." But it wasn't all she was asking. It was the beginning of a campaign. Letters started appearing at my door. Handwritten. Sloppy. Torn paper, smudged ink. Some of them came with little tokens: an old photo from a beach trip, a ticket stub from a concert we went to our first year together. She tried to use our history as a lifeline, like if she could just remind me of who we were, it would erase who she'd become. One letter in particular stood out. She wrote about the day we moved into our first apartment. About how the mattress didn't fit up the stairwell and we ended up dragging it across the fire escape in the rain. She wrote about how she never felt safer than she did that night, soaking wet and laughing, curled up under a pile of towels while we ate cold pizza on the floor. She ended it with, "I don't know how I lost that version of us. I don't know why I traded it for something so empty." I folded the letter and set it in a drawer. Not to save it, just to keep it from blowing away in the breeze. One afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened. It was Rachel. "Hey, Alex. It's Rachel. I hope I'm not overstepping, but Savannah's not in a good place. She won't admit it, but she's really struggling. I know what she did was wrong. I'm not defending it, but if there's anything you can do to..." "I don't know. Just talk to her maybe." I deleted the message. Not out of anger, but because I didn't want to start carrying other people's guilt. I learned she was applying for jobs. Not in her field, they wouldn't touch her now, but anywhere. Retail, receptionist work, even a front desk role at a gym. She used to oversee departments. Now she was handing out resumes to coffee shops. And I suppose that's what finally got to her. Not the silence, not the rejection, not even the loss of me, but the complete evaporation of control. Savannah wasn't just falling, she was falling in public. No graceful exit, no sympathetic framing. Just the slow-motion collapse of someone who thought she was too smart to fail. And the hardest part? I didn't enjoy watching it happen. People assume that once you've been betrayed, you want revenge. That you want the other person to suffer. But I didn't. I just wanted distance. I wanted the noise to stop. I wanted my house to feel like a home again, not a stage set for lies. And slowly it did. The air felt clearer. The rooms didn't hold secrets anymore. I slept through the night. I started putting music on in the mornings again, letting the smell of fresh coffee fill the kitchen instead of dread. I called friends. I laughed. I read. I breathed. While she unraveled, I rebuilt. And that, more than anything, was the real consequence. She destroyed what we had. And I chose not to save her from the wreckage.